Hello everyone, how are you this beautiful day that the Lord has made? I'm Carin Jane Casey on the podcast Turn to God with Carin. And every Wednesday we have Sword of the Spirit. Sword of the Spirit. Well, as we go out into the world each day, we need to be equipped with a full armor of God as described in Ephesians 6. And there we find that the sword of the Spirit is our only defensive weapon against the enemy, our adversary's attacks. What is the sword of the Spirit? That is the Word of God. The Word of God. It's God-breathed. It's living. And that is how we find about so many things about the Lord, His promises, and so on. Well, in January through June, we went through the book of Psalms and pretty much at a fast pace. I was merely reading it with a little bit of explanation in between. And we would cover maybe 3 or 4 passages at a time. Now we're going to back up into beginning with Psalms and look at just a few verses once in a while and talk about them. See how they affect us. Maybe look at other translations. We're going at a much slower pace at what we've already covered. If you want to read the whole passage, you can always go back to the episodes I've already done. So today we're going to talk about Psalm 3, verses 5 through 6, and then we'll look at something in Psalm 4. So in Psalm 3, 5 through 6, in the New Living Translation, this is what we have. I lay down and sleep, yet I woke up in safety, for the Lord was watching over me. I am not afraid of 10,000 enemies who surround me on every side. Well, of course, this was David talking about a time when he was surrounded by his enemies. But can we relate to that? Here it is in the Message. I stretch myself out. I sleep. Then I'm up again, rested, tall and steady, fearless before the enemy mobs coming at me from all sides. And I'm also going to read Psalm 4, verse 8, in the Amplified Version this time. In peace and with a tranquil heart, I will both lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety and confident trust. In the Message it says, at day's end, I'm ready for sound sleep. For you, God, have put my life back together. So I'm covering this in these verses. David was crying out to the Lord while he was running from his son, Absalom. His son wanted to kill him. So that is about the worst conflict you can have. Especially we see that David maintained his faith in God. He knew that God heard him and that he would answer. So there was no fear, only faith. And these verses are significant to me because I had issues with sleep for a time, I'll say 30 years ago. 30 years ago, while with my abuser in a life-threatening domestic violence situation, he would wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, every morning, and kept me awake for hours. And during that time, he would have me cleaning the house, listening to him scream at me, or I would be experiencing physical abuse. Part of it was I never knew what was going to happen. I just knew that my sleep patterns were broken. Every morning, I went to work and worked a full-time job. The amazing thing is that I also cried out to the Lord, and even while I remained in that situation for a year or so, and I was sleep deprived, the Lord did sustain me. I was well able to function. Even with a significantly less sleep, He sustained me. I was well rested. And it was only through God's grace that I escaped that violent situation. And then 9 years ago, which is very recent in comparison, I began to write my first book, My Dear Rosa Jean. And inspiration always came at night, usually at 1 a.m. And then after that, several hours of writing went on until I went to work full-time at my job. So it kind of looked like this. I would be asleep, sound asleep, and at 1 o'clock, I would see a paragraph, and it would be flashing. And I would try to ignore it, but it would stay. And a lot of times I would say, "Oh, all right," and I would get up out of bed and go to my computer and start typing. At 6 o'clock, my husband, my nice husband, came in and brought me some coffee, and he said, "Are you going to go to work today?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And so I'd work full time, and then at night, 1 o'clock in the mornings usually, I would write. Well, I was doing sleep deprivation again, and here I was writing about the time frame where I was deprived of sleep. It's kind of interesting in that way. But oddly, that fictional story was about my life, the period of abuse that I went through, and the Lord sustained me as I shared my testimony. And the testimony, the purpose of it all, was to help others who may be suffering and help them to overcome, help them to see a pathway towards overcoming. Well, the lesson David learned and I learned is that we can turn to God for our needs, even for sleeping. If we need our sleep, our rest, we can have faith in the Lord that He will sustain us. As you struggle at night for your sleep because of worries, dread, regrets, and anger, issues of all kinds, remember that you can always turn to God about anything, about all your troubles. The Lord loves you more than you love yourself, more than anyone else can love you. He loves your family more than you could ever love them. So I encourage you to turn to God for your rescue, for your deliverance, for forgiveness, and for redemption through Jesus Christ. And you will sleep like a baby. If you are deprived of the hours of sleep, the Lord will help you to be well rested. Just lean on Him, trust in Him, and have faith. Well, last year I published a nonfiction, A New Song Rises Up, where I present some of the events along my journey, which I spoke of here, including scenes of my life-threatening domestic violence situation, and what I learned and what the scriptures say about the Lord being there for hope for healing. We can find that at my website, CarinJaneCasey.com. In case you're wondering, inspiration came to me during the day for that book. And now I'm retired. I can devote more of my time as an author and as a podcaster. Recently, I published Stand With Your Armor On. Both of my books are behind me. And it's 5 fictional stories relating to current situations that are happening today, social issues we face now, and temptations to do evil, encouragements to do good, the gambit of choices and consequences. Aren't they all packaged together? Well, Stand With Your Armor On gives you a picture of what you can do, how you can stand with your armor on. I hope that you will get that. And meanwhile, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll join me every Wednesday for Sword of the Spirit in the episode of Turn to God with Carin. As you may know, Turn to God with Carin has episodes every Monday morning with topics relating to overcoming and hope for healing. And then every Friday we have Carin's Book Corner, where I read a little bit from books that I've written, give you a backstory, or I talk about other books that authors have done. This is Carin Jane Casey, author, speaker, podcaster, domestic violence victim advocate, and ambassador for Christ. And I welcome you to go to my website at the contact page and give me any feedback, any suggestions you may have. And that is, again, CarinJaneCasey.com. Well, thank you and God bless.